On behalf of my family and the Ursula K. Le Guin Foundation, welcome to the 2023 Ursula K. Le Guin Prize for Fiction. Today we celebrate the work of 9 remarkable writers, each of whom, as Ursula put it, is a realist of a larger reality. As you may know, anyone can nominate a book for this prize, and the breadth and diversity of nominations is crucial to the spirit of the program. So I offer my special thanks to the many readers, writers, librarians, booksellers, and publishing professionals who submitted nominations this year. As well, my deepest gratitude and affection to our 2023 selection panel, William Alexander, Alexander Chi, Karen Joy Fowler, Tochi Onyebuchi, and Shruti Swamy. These 5 gave deeply of their time and talent, and while we have only one prize, what a gift to the shortlist writers to know that their books were not only read, but embraced and discussed and debated by these 5. And now I'm thrilled to introduce our host, avid reader, and Academy Award winner, Alicia Vikander, who will present our 9 shortlist authors and announce the 2023 prize recipient.
Thank you so much, Theo. The Ursula K. Le Guin Prize for Fiction is an annual $25,000 cash prize given to a writer for a single work of fiction. The prize is intended to highlight writers whose access to resources may be limited and who may not be widely recognized yet for their work. This year's shortlisted books reflect on ideas that were central to Ursula's own work: freedom, justice, alternatives to conflict, and our place in the natural world. I find that they offer us joy and hope. They allow us to imagine ways out of impossible situations, and they teach us how things are and aren't and ought to be.
I love realistic novels and stories. I grew up with them and adored them, but the sort of cult of realism has narrowed our perception of what fiction is so much, and our perception of the things fiction can do and the ways it does them. We don't have adult myths now. We're a society that hasn't found its myths, I think. We're probably too disparate and too huge and complex to have, because as I understand myth, it's a teaching device that tells you this is how the world is. So I don't want to say that novels are myths, but in a sense, novels are teaching devices too. I mean, I've learned a lot about life from reading Jane Austen and Dickens and George Eliot and Virginia Woolf. Really a lot of useful information about how things are and how they ought to be and how they aren't and so on. Which I take it is the function that myth has in a smaller, more cohesive culture.
Your imagination seems so prolific with stories. There isn't just one tale that you have to tell, and it seems to be quite a wonderful gift to share with people.
There isn't anything I like better in the entire world than having a story and being able to write it. That is really good work.
Ursula once said that the hope for her books was that people would read them, argue about them, and cry over them. So, here are 9 books well worth reading, arguing about, and crying over. Wolfish by Christiana M. Andrews from Little Brown Books for Young Readers. Arboreality by Rebecca Campbell from Stelliform Press. Spear by Nicola Griffith from Tor.com Publishing. 10 Planets by Yuri Herrera, translated by Lisa Dillman from Grey Wolf. The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez from Del Rey. Brother Alive by Zain Khalid from Grove Atlantic. Meet Us by the Roaring Sea by Akhil Kumarasamy from Farah, Strauss and Gouraud. Geometries of Belongings by R.B. Lemberg from Fairwood Press. And finally, Drinking from Graveyard Wells by Yvette Lisa Nolovu from University Press of Kentucky. Now, let's listen to an excerpt from each of these books.
Hi everyone, my name is Christiane Andrews, and I'm happy to read to you today from Wolfish. Wolf pups grow quickly. The wolf babe grew quickly. Scent, there was always scent. The rough smell of earth and root and rock and dog. Damp fur and wolf milk. Marrow and meat. Berry and branch and blood and bone. Sound came next, all whimpering and mewling. Sometimes a throaty growl. Rum, rom, a wet-whiskered pushing, a sharp and gentle tooth nibbling with the rom. Sight came last. The darkness of the cave, the darkness of the pups, their shadowy, wriggling, mewling bodies. And then light. The opening to the outside, the forms of rocks and stones and trees, shadow and cloud and sun. It did not take the wolf babe long to find his feet rom. He was wandering, wobbling, four-footed in the spongy moss outside the cave. Rom. He was nipped when he wandered too far. Here was the smell of wide air and light and wind, carrying 1,000 other scents. What were they? He wanted to eat these scents. He wanted to roll in these scents. Bloom and decay, invisible footprint and damp droppings, flesh and feathers and fur. Smelling and listening, he could hear the smells forming, the tree shaking loose its warm, leafy scent, the mouse rustling its fur through twiggy debris. Wandering farther and farther, he could, nose in the air, sense the whole landscape take shape around him. Wood and stream and sharp mountaintop, he could find his way always again to the den. Rom. He learned to hunt. Long-legged, he learned to pounce, to snatch with his teeth the vole, the squirrel, the rabbit. With the other pups, he learned to track and surround and bring down deer and boar, and later, sometimes, when hunger drove them on, bear. He learned to eat as though he would not eat again, fill his belly with great feasts of flesh, gnaw all the goodness out of bones. He grew larger and faster and stronger. Though still the runt, he surpassed his mother in size before the first year was over. Though a wolf child, a creature unpicked and re-stitched by the grubs and creeping things of the earth, he still looked the part of a wolf. He had the tawny pelt and light eyes and full tail and sharp jaws of a wolf. He had the smell of a wolf. Perhaps in some lights, if any of the other wolves had looked just as the light was slanting, they would have seen something not wolf shifting beneath the fur. But most of what was boy was buried deep beneath wolf skin. Whatever was boy was quiet, for there were no words to shape and name the world around him. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Campbell, and I will be reading from Arboreality. Thank you for listening. Once, a long time ago, she'd been a kid in an overheated bedroom, dreaming of silence and cold water and wilderness, and now she was an old woman, and the street on which she had dreamed was probably inundated by king tides, or green with the spill of flooding rivers. Maybe there were new wetlands along Westminster Avenue, where she had often walked to the 7-Eleven, mussels growing over the old Starbucks on the corner, and ducks diving into the shallow waters of the expanding Fraser River. All the arable land of Delta salt-soaked, killing the black soil that had accumulated over thousands of years, the strawberry fields, the masses of dahlias and chrysanthemums. She wondered how she'd fallen in love with forests at all, considering they'd just been the skyline for much of her childhood, the smoke-whitened haze of Lynn Valley and Cypress looming to the north, streaked with ash. But there had been that patch of green grass out behind the townhouse in Ladner, a couple of cedars along the sidewalk, dying in the heat. Dad had old Canadian Tire buckets from which miraculous strawberries dropped, and in others he grew cherry tomatoes. The first seed she'd ever planted had been a packet of marigolds he'd bought her from the dollar store some hot night in a too short spring, when the ding-ding-ding from the walk signal on the corner punctured her sleep, her bedroom ceiling painted red by traffic lights. But in the egg carton, little green curls pushed up through the soil, and then, precious and secret, the first leaves unfurling. Frilled orange and yellow flowers she and Dad had transplanted into plastic buckets and set on the step outside their front door. Those flowers had glowed and bloomed all summer and into the winter, and she had been so proud. She was surprised to find she missed the streetlights, the sound of the walk signal. Not far away, the Pacific roared on, seeming not to notice the crumbling human world. On winter nights, the rain was incessant and the darkness absolute, but she remembered crowds and the smell of hot fire fat on summer evenings, the sky glowing amber long after midnight. Being 17 with a vodka buzz just before dawn, while the wildfire smoke filled her lungs. She'd never been hungry because there was nacho cheese from the spigot in the 7-Eleven, or shawarma, or roti, green patent high heels in a shop window. A new lipstick in purple and teal multichrome. For so long she had endeavored to contain them, but the memories of before were still inside her, as her body weakened and her mind fractured, pushing up through the soil. Did kids still congregate under streetlights while fires burned across the inlet? What about in Sacramento or Portland?
I'm Nicola Griffith, and I'm reading from Spear. In the wild waste, a girl, growing, a girl at home in the wild, in the leafless thicket of thin grey saplings with moss growing green on one side. In this thicket, the moss side does not face north, but curves in a circle with its back to the world, and at its centre, where the branches grow most tangled and forbidding, is a hill. In the face of that hill, always hidden from the world, is the dark mouth of the cave where the girl lives with her mother. As far as the girl can tell, none on 2 legs but herself and her mother has ever trod here. Her mother will creep from the cave only as far as the gardens at the edge of the thicket, and then only in summer, when the leaves are cloak enough to hide the sun-burnished bronze of her heavy waved hair, when the hard enamel blue of her eyes might be forget-me-nots. But the girl is at home in all the wild. She roams the whole of Ustrad Towi, the valley of the Towi who fled David in the long ago. In this valley, where there is a tree, she will climb it. It will shelter her, and the birds that nest there in spring will sing to her, warning of any 2-legged approach. In May, as the tree blossoms fall and herbs in the understory flower, she will know by the scent of each how it might taste with what meat, whether it might heal, who it could kill. From its nectar, she will know which moths will come to drink, know too of the bats that catch the moths, and what nooks they return to, where they hang wrapped in their leather shrouds as the summer sun climbs high, high enough to shine even into the centre of the thicket. Before harvest, when the bee hum spreads drowsy and heavy as honey, she tastes in their busy drone a tale of the stream over which they skim, the falls down which the stream pours, the banks it winds past, where reeds grow thick and the autumn bittern booms. And when the snow begins to fall once again, she catches a flake on her tongue and feels, lapping against her belly, the lake it was drawn from by summer sun, far away. A lake like a promise she will one day know. Then, as the world folds down for winter, so too do the girl and her mother, listening to the crackle of flame and, beyond the leather door curtain, the soft hiss of snow settling over the hills and hollows like white felt.
My name is Yuri Herrera. I'm going to read an excerpt from The Monster's Art, which is a short story belonging to 10 Planets, translated by Lisa Dillman. We need the monster's art, he said, and produced an official document mandating as much. The bailiff swept his eyes slowly over the document, as though assessing its gravity, but he wasn't assessing it, just giving the impression of doing so. Of course, he said, and turned. He pushed open the wooden door now in front of him and walked into the next room, showed the document to the secretary, who solemnly swept his eyes over it and nodded, then walked to the back of the room, turned the knob of the second door, which was plastic. In the next room was nothing but a desk with a single drawer. He opened the drawer and extracted a ring of 3 keys, used one to open the next door, the aluminum door, and walked into the next room. Nothing in it, just silvery metal walls. He used the 2 remaining keys to open the next door, which had an oak finish but a soul of steel, and entered the last room. This one was also all metal, but littler than the others. The ceiling was a single square bulb, which illuminated one shelf holding bottles and another shelf on which lay a blunt-tipped cane and a box containing rolls of paper of various textures. On the floor was a square black device with a cord, also black. He placed one bottle, the cane, and a roll of paper on top of the apparatus and pushed the whole of it to the next door, which resembled that of a safe. The bailiffs spun the dial on the combination lock this way, then that, then this again, this, that, spanning the segments of each revolution with expertise, tempo, and determination until the lock went click. Then he pulled the titanium-handled hatch and entered the monster's room.
My name is Michelle Ruiz-Kyle, and I will be reading a selection of The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. It is only now that you realize you've heard this tale before, at least a version of it. You don't know what tripped this memory. It comes on you suddenly as the dancers in this moonlit body clear the stage. The day your father told you the tale of the stolen moon and her journey to reclaim her country. You do not remember why he told you this tale. After all, he seemed perpetually annoyed by your Lola's efforts to share with you everything she knew of the old country. But what you do remember is the great pains he took to describe the battles and the swordplay, and how he kept interrupting his own tale to assure you that this wasn't a love story, that it was about camaraderie, that it was about a revolution, the important things. You never thought it was a love story, for in his story, there was no love. There was only a long road of bodies. The end of his tale is lost to your remembrance. You only know that it takes place in the span of 5 days, and that there is much blood yet to spill before the end. But outside of the tale, you remember your Lola shaking her head and tisking from the other room. And once your father had left to go on his afternoon constitutional, she came over to you and said, "Do not heed his words to the letter." She told you that that was but one version of the telling, that your father had learned this way from your Grandjo, who had his own feelings about life and what was worth his attention. And then she sat on her favorite chair in the kitchen and rolled out a cigarette, even though by then she was very weak and could barely hold a breath. You wanted to go out and play, but she told you to wait and listen. She told you that this was important. The old men would have you believe it shook out one way, that the road was but pain and glory. Sometimes, perhaps, life whittles itself down to these essences. Sometimes there is nothing we can do but sit in it. She took a long drag and blew gray smoke up into the ceiling, where it lived like an opaque and swirling cloud of shape and texture. But listen well when I tell you that your father and your Grandjo are wrong. What were they wrong about, you asked? She shrugged. This is a love story to its blade-dented bone.
My name is Zain Khalid, and I'm reading from my novel, Brother Alive. It is night, and Imam Salim is dozing in his mosque, a little drunk. Our dark apartment is shot through by the naked heat of summer. An exhausted ceiling fan cuts the air in fifths. Something is being turned up so slow that it is hard to know what it is exactly. An exponential S in low frequency, maybe a boiler or a furnace. My senses sharpen and I am myself a boy sitting on the kitchen floor. At my feet, a beetle is looking at me with misery disclosed beneath exothalamic eyes. There is a dry snapping and the sound of legs. The kitchen fills with a ruddy gas as the beetle scuttles under medical equipment, disappearing amid the tubing and beeping machines. Time unwinds and winds, and Imam Salim is awake now, and I am slung over his shoulder, and sleep rents the room between my ears. I look back for the beetle to find it has become a child seated on the counter, his legs swaying like two metronomes nudged one after the other. And like me, he is slender, hirsute, feminine, and unwise. He is not solid. He is either living silver or spun glass. Though just a few hours my senior, he already expects disappointment. When we acquire language, we are each other's first word.
Hi, I'm Akhil Kumarasamy, and I'll be reading from my novel, Meet Us by the Roaring Sea. We were 18 the summer of the drought. The cow's milk tasted of water, and the harvest had shriveled to half-formed things. Onions the size of chicken eggs were pulled from the ground, and lentils the color of the sky, the same bright blue as the dye from the garment factory. At St. Mary's Hostel, we survived off boiled peanuts and rice porridge. The single meal was meant to last us the whole day. The hunger was a lesson in the human body. And on our first day of anatomy class, we all looked drained and hollowed out, like the skeleton hanging in the front of the room. 17 girl specimens. Alone for the first time in our lives, we walked from the hostel to the canteen, our backs hunched and arms tight across our chests. And the older girls would look at us wordlessly while passing. Their gaze, like the steady surface of a mirror, would feel them willing us to look, step closer, reveal what we did not even know of our true natures. Sitting side by side, the older girls ate with a patience we had yet to fully understand. They chewed on a single peanut for 20 minutes, moving their mouths so slowly as though they were chanting. Sometimes they left the porridge outside the gates for a street dog, or they searched for the hungry before sundown, walking barefoot down the streets. To us, it seemed like they survived eating nothing at all. We had come from all different villages and cities across the state to the recently established medical college, only 29 kilometers from the island. Our parents were told we would get first-rate medical training because of the geography. How many first-year students were able to operate on patients? Our parents knew of the Civil War on the island, but with a distant recollection, much like their memory of the old epic poetry we shared. Written in the same tongue when ancient kings ruled the land, and nothing as elemental as water divided dynasties. For them, these were like fables, old wives' tales, useless musings that brought only more hunger. We were mostly average students who scored high enough to enter medical school, but not enough for a government scholarship. With the opening of the medical college by the refugee camps, our parents prayed at the temple, the mosque, the church, thanking the Lord for the misfortune of others. As long as people suffered, we would be employed. When they spoke of the refugees, they expressed an oversaturated pity, their voices clouded with satisfaction. And before they could turn away, we saw the faint outline of a smile crossing their lips, as if they found a dark-edged pleasure in the image of us holding knives and needles, poking and prodding with our young, inexperienced hands. Thank you.
I'm Arby Lemberg, and I'm the author of Geometries of Belonging, Stories and Poems from the Birdverse. I like to be alone in the healing room. It is a small place, and the low-ceiling boards smell slightly of damp. The candle bulb, a floating magical light I have created, is weak and does not jar the senses. Small square windows of tourmaline glass are the only hint at means, installed here only because I need privacy. The tenants in surrounding rooms keep quiet at my request. It is a fair price for them to be this close to a holy place. I feel their emotions sometimes when I work, a subdued kind of awe that spreads through the people like warmth, brown-yellow and tinted at the edges with soft orange. But holiness is often just unholiness purified. Silence sighs from the gaps of any great power, from the spaces in between the deep names as they nestle in the mind of a named strong. What a body learns from wounds, it cannot easily unlearn. Crude tears of flesh and breaks of bone can be erased with magic if one acts quickly, but subtle damage is so difficult to repair. A person knocks. It is an old woman, made frail by hard work, her fingers swollen. Even though I have not yet extended my deep names, I can feel how her joints ache with the damp and the early autumn cold. Laundry, the river, its water unheated by the passage of magic. The kind of work that women do in my neighborhoods, where named strong are a rarity. I make her tea with birch syrup, warm enough to hold without dropping. I ask after her name, her grandchildren's health, and finally, her permission. She gives it, even though she does not quite remember why she made it here. My work is all residence. Slowly I make my deep names vibrate. Slowly, the grid of her mind realigns itself. She will remember more now, pay attention to her surroundings, speak with clarity. But in a year I gauge, maybe 2, the warping will reassert itself and she will start slipping. Her mind is too used to this pattern, comfortable like an old, torn blanket. The work done, I thank her and bow. This gesture is perhaps what I cherish the most about healings. She remembers to thank me in turn. Thank you.
I'm Yvette Lisandlovu, and I'll be reading from Drinking from Graveyard Wells. They take Jabu's eyes on a Tuesday morning. The snowflakes fall with an obscene tenderness outside. We're inside a sterile government building that looks like a cross between a DMV and a church. The building seems to be designed to keep any warmth out, lest the querequeres inside get comfortable. It is the kind of cold that takes hold of your bones and refuses to let go. My friend Jabu is a painter. With a stroke of a brush, he can put rainbows to shame. He likes to paint our homeland, the beautiful blue sky we left behind when home became a thing with thorns. The naturalization priest lays a hand over Jabu's eyes, and just like that, Jabu's beautiful brown eyes vanish as if they've never existed. The spot where his eyes used to be is as smooth as an arm. Jabu collapses to the ground and retches on all fours into a plastic bin. Jabu isn't the first to vomit during a naturalization ceremony, so the priests always have those little plastic bins stationed at every corner of the building. The naturalization priest's face sours like it might if he spotted a fat rat scurrying into his kitchen. Jabu retches until there's nothing left to come out of anymore. He dry heaves and wails for the rest of the ceremony. He can't even cry. They took his eyes. One never knows what the naturalization priests are going to take from a quere. The only thing that we do know is that they will take something that you love. I remember my conversation with Jabu before the ceremony. I won't be a quere anymore, he'd said, his eyes lighting up at the prospect of his dreams coming together like pieces of a puzzle to a decent life. When I'm a citizen, I will take shifts at the power plant during the day and then paint at night. I'll save up to open up my own gallery, you'll see. I can't wait to brag to everybody that I have a friend with a gallery, I said. I watch Jabu on the floor now. The wretched of the earth are not meant to make art. We're supposed to be too busy surviving. The corners of the priest's mouth twitch upwards in delight at the humiliation. Another quere shown his place. Even though I too want to slump to the ground, I move towards Jabu and help him up. Come on, Jabu, I say. Stop it. I know it's cruel, but I have to be the stronger one. I can't let Jabu end up like Asha. God forbid he ends up like Asha. You're a citizen now, I remind him, giving him a squeeze. Forget your eyes. They were a small price to pay. They took, he whimpers, still unable to fully comprehend what happened. My eyes. You can find other ways to make art, Jabu, I say, pulling his hair back so he can retch some more. Others have it worse, please. I don't want you to end up like... Asha was our friend. While we all picked up the new language and tried to iron out our old accents, like pressing the wrinkles out of clothing, Asha refused to learn the new tongue. It was her form of resistance. This place would take from us anyways, Asha said. Why not hold on to something? Then the naturalization priest took her language. No longer could she sing Stella Chiweshe and Lena Limbo songs that reminded us of everything we lost. She didn't eat for a month after she got her citizenship. We found her hanging from the ceiling on a Sunday night. It could be worse, I say again, trying to convince myself more than him. The naturalization priests don't only take body parts, voices. They can take away joy, names, love, beauty, songs, laughter, family recipes, music, and so much more. I shudder to think about it. But that is the price of citizenship.
This year's prize goes to a book that our selection panel described as profoundly ethical, beautifully illuminated, a new kind of story about something familiar. The 2023 Ursula K. Le Guin Prize for Fiction goes to Arboreality by Rebecca Campbell. In linked stories that travel through generations, the author explores the effect of climate change on one part of British Columbia as regular people remake their lives by growing together and reconsidering gentler ways to live in a drastically reshaped world. Our selection panel said, Arboreality offers hope that doesn't discount the terror that we might still suffer, and the injustice that might still plague the world. That persistence of humanness, of the better angels of our nature, and trying to make anew, feels perfectly embodied in this year's prize recipient.
My name is Rebecca Campbell, and I am here to accept the 2023 Ursula Le Guin Prize for my novella Arboreality. So first, I obviously need to thank the Ursula Le Guin Foundation for organizing the prize in the first place, and the judges for being such sympathetic readers and giving my book a chance. It is such a pleasure to know that it connected with people. And you know, we don't write alone. None of us do. So I also want to thank all the people in my life, my friends, my family, my partner, my son, who know that or believe that me spending time alone in a room making up stories is a valid way to spend an afternoon. I know I'm very lucky in that support, and I am grateful for it every single day. I also need to thank the editors. That's first Neil Clark at Clark's World, who published the initial novelette that eventually grew into Arboreality. And then I must thank Selena Middleton at Stelliform Press. This book was very much a collaboration with her, and she made the book what it is in a lot of ways. We worked together on it. And I feel so lucky that it found a home at Stelliform, a small press that is entirely run by her brains and her ambition and her hope to find a certain kind of story and to make space for it in a world where it might be squeezed out. In Canadian literature and Canadian culture, we owe a lot to small presses, and that's true all over the world. So seeing a small press get this kind of attention is really powerful and inspiring. There's room at Stelliform for me to take risks, to experiment a little bit, and I am so grateful for that. And finally, I want to thank Ursula Le Guin for being an absolute inspiration to me for my entire reading life. I don't think I would write the stories I do if it wasn't for her. And thank you all for listening as well.
I just want to send my absolute warmest congratulations to you, Rebecca, and thanking all of you for joining me today to celebrate these books and writers. We are truly grateful for your support. Here are a few words about the next year's prize.
Hi, I'm Shruti Swamy, author of The Archer and a proud member of this year's selection committee. Congratulations, Rebecca, and thanks to all of you for joining us in support of these wonderful authors. Before we parted ways, I wanted to say a couple words about next year's prize. The spiritual core of this prize is the fact that anybody can nominate for it. This prize depends on the quality and diversity of its nominations. Early next year, we'll announce our 2024 selection panel and open the nomination period. Please nominate books and ask your friends and neighbors and teachers and coworkers to nominate books too. Thanks for joining, thanks for reading, and see you next year.
I think hard times are coming when we will be wanting the voices of writers who can see alternatives to how we live now and can see through our fear-stricken society and its obsessive technologies to other ways of being, and even imagine some real grounds for hope. We will need writers who can remember freedom, poets, visionaries, the realists of a larger reality.